Tonight I should be in. Okay. Welcome to the meeting tonight. My name is Karen Takai, with the Fire Information. Good evening, my name is Karen Takai. I did fire information for Clay's team, and we thank you for coming out tonight to get the latest and the greatest information. I'd like to start first by introducing the support system that you have in this community, and you have some incredibly great people as we interact with them. So let's start over on this side. Introduce yourself.
Tom Moore with the Garrison up on Fort.
Mark Ruggiero, the Sierra Vista District Ranger here for the Coronado National Forest.
Good evening, I'm Jamie Kingsbury, the Deputy Forest Supervisor for the Coronado National Forest.
So, for those that don't know me, I'm Clay Templin. I'm the incident commander for this fire.
Mark Danz with the Sheriff's Office.
Watch out.
Okay, I guess for the sake of recording this, we need to be speaking into the microphone if we're going to speak. Anybody else want to introduce from agencies?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Norm Sturm with Cochise County Emergency Services.
Bob Schmeg, Sierra Vista Salvation Army.
Dan Cotto, American Red Cross.
Carol Kappas, Cochise County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, thank you. We'll start first with.
So what? Well, you try this. Okay, so first you're gonna have to bear with me. I'm gonna have to state the stand here. We're gonna have a few slides. Last night, if you remember, for those of you who attended the public meeting, I said I'd have a few pictures so you can kind of get an appreciation for what our men and women that are up there on the line, what they're facing, and it'll kind of help explain some of it. Then I'll come down here and I'll walk everybody through on the map, and we'll go ahead and take some questions after that, okay? All right, so we'll start with the first picture. Okay, so if you refer to your two monitors up above you, this is the Brown Fire. So where we're looking at, this is kind of on the very north end of the fire looking up the mountain. So the mountain in the distance is Ramsey Peak, okay? So that'll kind of give you an idea. So last night, if you remember, I told you we had a line of fire retardant all the way around it. This is where you can kind of see where it's at. This was about midday, and so you know that we were wind tested again today on this. And so when we talk about the sheltered aspect of what this fire is, you can kind of see it's in a bowl, just like we kind of described it, okay? It didn't get up on top of the ridges too bad, and it didn't spill over the top of the ridges, which would have presented some issues for us had that occurred. We'd be looking at our contingency lines. So as we go through the next slides, I kind of give you an idea a little bit of what each of these flanks look like, okay? So on this photo, you know, we talk a little bit about when we talk in terms of what's a clean burn and what's a dirty burn. So as you see in this photo, this will give you an idea. So when we talk in terms from a fire service perspective, we've got a clean, you can see all the vegetation, it burned hot, all the vegetation is gone. It's down to basically mineral soil at that case. As you can see, as you look a little farther down the slopes, you still see that there's some smoke and there's some hot areas. It's not clean down there. We have a lot of unburned vegetation or green between where it's clean and where it isn't. So this presents us some difficulties. We can't go just charging after all those little fires that are down in there because one, if we do get conditions that change, that could rapidly escalate and our firefighters would be at harm's way. So we're not going to do that. So if you remember, I had said our safety of our men and women is our first concern. This is the reason why. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the western flank of that fire, and this will give you an idea of where that retardant line is. And when we talk in terms of where the top of the ridge is, that's where our guys have been concentrating. And so when we talk about a hand line and the line of effort and the progress we made today, that's where we'll talk about. And then we'll talk a little bit about containment. We talked about containment, but I want you to see these slides so you can get a perspective of what kind of fuels, what kind of terrain. And these photos don't do it justice as far as how incredibly steep rolling rocks, a lot of hazards that presents themselves to our firefighters. Next slide. Okay, and then this is looking at the eastern flank. So you can kind of see all those areas that are still hot down below it. We're up on the ridges right now, and where they're working is off those retardant lines. Remember I said we have to put people right alongside that retardant line, and they're building hand lines, which is basically we're using hand implements and chainsaws to clear the vegetation and get it down to mineral soil. Okay, so that's our line that's preventing that fire from going across the side. Okay, all right, that's it. So let me have one of those microphones. Okay, oops. Test, now we're good to go. Okay, so when we look at this fire, I actually provided, I said I'd get a better map than the little small one we had last night, so hopefully you man on my word. So today I'm going to use my marker, so this is one of the things I like to show. I don't use a black, because when you have a black marker, that shows the area is contained. But I want to show you as far as the line of effort that was done. So I'm going to get down on my knees so you can kind of see this. So what we had is we had 2 hotshot crews that started here yesterday, and so they've made progress all along the line here, and they're down to about right where this division break is between Division Alpha, Division Lima, okay? Conversely, we had another hotshot crew that started down this flank on the eastern side, and they were joined up by a second hotshot crew this morning. We flew them in, and so the progress for the day is they're down to almost right here at the break between Division Sierra and Division Lima. So that's the line of effort that was completed today, okay? We're gonna go ahead and try to get our other 3 hotshot crews coming up from the bottom tomorrow, and they'll join up, and we're gonna see if we can't do this line of effort to go ahead and secure it. There's a couple of areas that really give us some concern because of the topography that's over in this area, and we're just gonna have to take a look at it. And I hope everyone can get an appreciation for why it's taking time. After you saw the steep country, you saw the fuel that is unburned, and why we're doing what we're at, okay? We did have a little bit of aerial assets that we went ahead and used today for support of the guys. They best know what they need up there, so they're not gonna need to have a lot of stuff if it's not needed for up on top, okay? So that's where we're progressing. Additionally, when we talk about the contingency efforts that are going on, we've got a line effort that's going in with Sawmill Canyon, so they're working and prepping those contingency lines. We've looked at the Garden Canyon, so we've got a lot of folks in there that are looking at it. And then additionally, over in Ramsey Canyon, we've been doing a lot of work as far as prepping that area. For some reason, it went over that side and started back down Ramsey Canyon, okay? We're optimistic. We're very happy with what happened. You know, the winds did not manifest themselves today as strong as they could have, so it was a good day for us. So we're feeling pretty good optimistic, pretty good chance of probability, a high probability of success that we're going to be successful in doing our operation. So that's kind of where we're at. That's the where we're at. It's not a very big fire. I can tell you at this point, the acreage from our infrared flight was 240 acres. 8 of those acres are on National Forest, the rest is on the fort. Okay, so that's where we're at. Still showing 0 containment, but 0 containment doesn't mean line of effort. We've got a lot of effort that's going in, but I want you to appreciate it. In order for me to declare containment, it can't get across that line. I have to be very confident it's not going to move across. So, and the other part of it is if I had containment and it did move, you would see those numbers start to change because if the fire grows, then we've got less containment. So we're working hard. I can tell you there's a lot of stuff here. We're still optimistic. So hopefully that kind of explains why we're reporting the fire the way we are. Okay.
All righty, we're gonna go into questions. Can you hear me now? Okay. And again, we're gonna start first on this side, if there's any questions that we have for any of the agency people though, whether it's about evacuations and or if it's about the actual fire and or the team. Sure, go ahead.
Just the acreage of the burn versus the size of that bowl.
Okay, so when we look at it, when we have to do our reporting, we can't go ahead and go around each and every one of those little fires. So what we represented is between the areas that burned on the outside, and that's what this outside line represents. So within that 240 acres, you saw that not everything burned.
But is that the boundary of that bowl where it's burned?
Correct, yep. So when we have this, the question was, is that the boundary of the bowl? It is. And if you look at the map, if you want to come up here, I'll walk you through it, but it's, you know, if you look at the ridge lines,
Okay.
that's what we represent. It's kind of very, it's very protected from a lot of winds, so.
Any other questions?
Are you going down, Rose?
Yeah. I know you have a question. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Coleman. I live in Hereford, and I have photographed and documented the border for many years. In this area, I'm very impressed that you have access to it, even by foot, getting down those steep slopes. I understand that there's a person of interest that's being questioned. And are there trails that lead into that? Are there roads that come up to that where a family would be up there picnicking? And the person of interest, are they being held or have they been released?
Okay, so from my perspective, I can tell you this. My job is to go ahead and do this fire, okay? And so as you can tell by the map, there are no roads in this area. That's one reason why we've had to fly people or walk people up. So, no, there are no roads in this area. As far as marked trails on that, no, we don't know aware of any trails that are there. And as far as your other questions, I can't respond because it really is a law enforcement issue. So I can tell you that everything that Mr. Upchurch said last night is still accurate.
And he's not here this evening. Can you tell me if this area is on Fort Huachuca or perhaps someone on Fort Huachuca? And does Fort Huachuca daily or weekly have a problem with foot traffic coming through such terrain onto the base? And if so, approximately how many a day?
We often have foot traffic that comes through the fort. The numbers I don't have off the top of my head. We work in conjunction with the Border Patrol. Anything that comes across that we happen to detain, for lack of better terms, is turned over to the Border Patrol for processing, is what I can tell you tonight.
And who can give us those numbers?
You can send that request in through the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, if you would like to do that.
Through the military or Border Patrol?
Through the Border Patrol or the military, either one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the group?
Just had a quick question about donations. There's a lot of confusion with the wives and the different postings on Fort Huachuca. The current update was that if we were to donate things, that they would just be thrown away. And I know they're contracted out, and we understand that. Is there any option for people who already have donations and where they can bring them?
So for us, as I said last night, we really appreciate the thought for donations on that, but we're fully self-contained. We have all the resources we need. We certainly appreciate the efforts of the community and the donations. What I would option is please contact either the local church communities, Salvation Army, American Red Cross. That's all areas that you might be able to go to on it.
Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sandy.
It's on.
My name is Sandy Kashinsky. I'm relatively new here. We're used to hurricanes and that source from the East Coast. So if the fire were to change directions or get out of control, what kind of procedures are there for notifying us of evacuation?
Okay, so the question had to do what those procedures are if this was to substantially change and start progressing back down towards the communities. I can tell you this, we have a very close relationship with Cochise County Sheriff's Office, who's responsible for that. So we work in a partnership with them. And so if something was to change, we go ahead and we'll make a recommendation that here's what we're best estimate given what the fire behavior is, what's in front of it. And so there'll be a series of times that we did that. And I think both Sheriff and Mark last night had gone ahead and said there was a few pre-evacuation notices that were sent out to certain residences, but I can assure you on this part, it's a close relationship with the sheriff. So.
answer your question. Sorry, I have a little bit of a voice thing going on right now. I guess I talk too much sometimes. In reference to evacuations and pre-evacuations, I'm gonna move your map here for a moment. Am I straight there? Is it not on? Is it not on? Okay. One by that. As part of the Sheriff's Office commitment to ensuring that as many people as possible were aware of the fire and potential actions that we would have to take from a law enforcement stance, based upon our experience with the Monument Fire and the Horseshoe 2 fire specifically, we created, I guess, a pre-plan, and we were able to go ahead and institute the very beginning of that with the idea in mind that if this fire did get out of control, then it could potentially breach right in the area of the top of Ramsey Canyon and then come through that saddle. So in order to make sure that people were aware of what was going on, and again, this was a pre-evacuation plan, if we go back historically and look at the Monument Fire, we found a lot of people were not prepared. We had people that refused to leave their homes even though they were in the direct line of the fire because they never thought that it would blow out those canyons as quickly as it did. It actually came down one of the canyons in about 14 and a half minutes. And the fire department was there, ready to help. Sierra Vista Fire Department, the incident management team were amazing, but people weren't anticipating that. So when they got locked out of their areas, they couldn't get back to their homes, they couldn't get medications that were needed. We did everything possible that we could, again, working cooperatively with all other agencies to make sure that people could get the things that they needed, but we could not let them back into their home for a safety issue. We had people refusing to leave and they had children in the homes with them, and they were in the direct line of fire. We still have copies of audio recordings where our deputies were directly put in the line of fire, and they were driving through fire lines with actual flames coming at their vehicles, hitting their tires, and having them, you could hear them on the radio yelling that they were trying to get people out. So we want to make sure we don't ever have to go through that again. So this is an informational alert for everyone who lived in the Ramsey Canyon area based upon the thought that if the winds were to shift direction, and our best guesstimate would be that they would come down Ramsey Canyon first, that we wanted to make sure that people did have an expectation that they would be ready, that they would, kind of like your kids when they're going to school, you make sure their backpacks are ready to go by the front door every morning so you don't have to run and grab shoes and clothes and barrettes and groceries, lunches. So we wanted to make sure that they were ready specifically with things that they would need. Items of high value, priceless items, family heirlooms, medication, money, credit cards. We wanted to make sure that people were aware that these are the things that they needed to have, and they needed to have them pretty close at hand so that they could pack their vehicles and get gone in 5 to 10 minutes. Really, it is a life-saving measure for everyone who lives in the areas that potentially could be impacted by evacuation, regardless of the situation or where you live. And it's a public safety issue for all of our firefighters out there, all of our law enforcement officers. So the questions had come up, what do we need to do? And this is what was developed, this is what was being passed out. We identified that area to have approximately 150 residents. We tried to make contact yesterday and today. We were pretty successful in that effort, and using our media partners to get the information out, using our social media networks such as Twitter and Facebook, having people sign up to have emails sent to them. So again, a pretty successful effort. The call center was graciously hosted by the City of Sierra Vista. They set it up within 20-30 minutes tops, and that was yesterday. Have dedicated phone lines. Fort Huachuca is amazing. If you look at their social media webpage, you're going to see photos that are fantastic. So again, it's just such a huge cooperative effort. We can't say enough about your incident management team. They're amazing people. And this, again, is strictly for an advisory to people who live in the area. Please be prepared. It's something that if you had no idea it's coming. But in these situations, this one in particular, versus the Monument Fire, we know that this is out there, and we know it could potentially be coming, again, based upon our experience. Does anybody have any questions on that? Yes, sir.
On this, it says that you want us to plan on removing livestock now. Is that still the plan, or is that just have the livestock ready to be moved?
that's just have your livestock ready to be moved, because we have livestock inspectors, 4 of them on our list right now that have volunteered to help move them as well as care for the horses. So you don't need to have that plan in place, but you need to identify the number of livestock that you would have to move if the need arose, and make sure that it's not at the 11th hour. Because again, were you around during the Monument fire? Yeah. You remember the horses that got trapped in there? That was just a horrific situation. We want to make sure that you're pre-planning. Again, I go back, I digress a little bit, but during the Monument fire, we had warned people and warned people and warned people. And the fire had blown down and was getting ready to cross Highway 92, and a woman called that she had 55 birds to move, exotic birds. There was no way we could get 55 birds out of that area. So we just encourage everyone to be prepared. Public safety has a role and individuals have a role. So please just be prepared. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
If it does blow out through the canyon, is it likely to get out to 92?
We would truly hope not. But again, you have an amazing incident command system in place. You have firefighters that are, you can tell by the way that they're actually hot shots on the ground, keeping this under control.
Yes.
So we would hope not, because once it gets out of that area, then your firefighters from Fry and Sierra Vista obviously would be sucked into this whole thing. And again, if you haven't met these people, they're dedicated employees and they're extremely good at what they do.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So this order is still in place?
It is in place. We
Yeah.
finished up today.
So we had somebody come to us today saying that they've gotten a notice that it was lifted, so. we
The
can
red
help.
flag warning has been lifted.
Okay, so that confused somebody, and we'll just.
And we
get the
still
word out
have,
again that-
yes, ma'am, we still have the call center that we anticipate being open tomorrow. Is that right, Judy?
Yes.
So we do have the call center that we plan to have open at 8 a.m. Based upon what our incident commander tells us. Please tell us that it's out by tomorrow morning.
I would like to do that, but it'll be a little bit.
Oh, my voice is giving out. So hopefully we can get that taken care of. But yes, this is still in place. And again, precautionary measure at this point. Any other questions?
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll be here for a few minutes afterwards, so if you have a specific question you want to direct to me or any of the other community partners here, please come up and see us. And one thing I'll just make a pitch is, you've gone ahead, and this is early in the fire season. This is very early for this part of Arizona. I'm going to tell you now, if we get a month from now, please pay attention to what the Cochise County Sheriff's Office is telling you. Have your pre-evacuation, have your bags ready to go, because as the season gets hotter and drier, it's going to be a lot more rapid things that are going to happen. We've had a little bit of time on this one. That may not be the case here in another month or 2 months. So, yes, sir.
My name's Carl. Who manages the land that the fires are happening on?
Okay, so when we talked about this, so 240 acres, so 232 of it is on the fort property. So it's Department of Defense, and National Forest has about 8 acres.
Okay, so Fort Huachuca, are they doing controlled burns to control this fire hazard?
We do perform some periodic controlled burns, but again, it's weather conditions, it's fuel conditions. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that planning, and the fire department works in conjunction again with the U.S. Forest Service to make sure we do that safely. We had some prescribed burns actually coming up here in the next couple of weeks that obviously are not going to happen now because the conditions have changed so soon this year. We did do some last year, and we continue to do those as the opportunity rises.
About how many acres have you controlled burned so far this year?
I honestly don't know off the top of my head.
300, 200?
I couldn't give you a number.
Let me go ahead and speak just a bit to help Tom out on this. So one of the things that we've all experienced in Arizona, it was an incredibly dry winter, compounded by the extensive drought. I have to be honest with you, the prescribed fires this year, not just down here on the Coronado, this area here, it's out of prescription. So on this case, if we were to do some of our prescribed fires for fuel reduction, it has a chance of really becoming a wildfire. So it has to be within the prescription. We're so dry, we didn't have very many days to go ahead and have that opportunity to do our normal fuel
That
reduction.
was during a small period of time. During the whole course of the year, how many controlled burns have we done?
So earlier in the winter, I can tell you on that part of it, we had an opportunity. But for right now, as this got into December, the conditions just weren't on right to go ahead and do that.
At the beginning of the year, how many
Hold on a
acres?
second.
Zero.
One second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Clay. And Tom. We We assist the fort in prescribed fire or controlled burning every year, and we accomplished around 2,300 acres on Fort Huachuca last year. This year, because of the extreme drought, the lack of winter rain and snow, we have not been doing any prescribed fire at this point. We're hoping we have several on the books for maybe this fall, once the monsoons engage, and we can get going again with this fall. But because of the current conditions, we have not done anything this calendar year.
Okay, so this calendar year, we've had 0 burn.
That is correct.
One other thing I want to just touch on real quick is to help everybody understand where we're at now versus what we had in Monument. So we're at a different period of time. Right now, the reason why this looks like it does, we have just a little bit higher live fuel moisture. So if you looked at all that unburned stuff, that's the reason why it's not burning. It's not burning clean. In the Monument, we had incredibly dry fuel moistures compounded by extreme winds, high temperatures, much warmer than what it is right now. So as we go along, the potential for something like that is going to increase until we get our monsoon moisture. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Just one more. Would we be told what routes to take out of Sierra Vista?
Okay, so the question was, will you be told what evacuation routes on that? I'll probably defer back to the sheriff's office.
Yes, ma'am, we will have maps that will be pre-printed. They are going to be widely distributed, and you definitely will be given routes to get out of the fire zone, out of immediate harm's way. Exactly like we did with the Monument fire, we just had to have contingency plans based upon which way we thought the fire was going to go, but we will be ready to be able to provide that information to you at a moment's notice. And that includes traffic control, that includes other agencies that may come from all over the state of Arizona to assist, federal, local, state.
Any other questions? Any closing remarks from the base?
No, just, you know, we really owe a great debt of gratitude to these Type 1 team that's come in and all these hotshots that come in. You know, they go out there, they do a fine job, they risk their lives to protect everything around us. So when you see them out and about, if you happen to catch them in a restaurant or something downtown, when this is all over with, take the time to thank them for the service, because they really put themselves on the line for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you from the Forest Service side. Thank you to the community very much. We're honored to have Clay's team here. They're doing an outstanding job for us in the fort, and it's a pleasure, I know from my perspective, to talk to all of you, see you on the street, talk about what's going on, be proactive what we're doing here. Just thank you for the community support.
Anyone else closing remarks?
And the question is, what's the local station here that we can pick you up? It will give us an idea, like you are tonight, where the fire is, how close it is to our neighborhood.
We work closely with all media outlets, but specifically K10, K101, Cherry Creek Radio in this area. And I'm not quite sure how much information that they broadcast to point, but I do have emergency contact phone numbers for them. So regardless of the day and night, we can make sure that we can even call people at home, which has been done as recently as 2 weeks ago, and they will come into the station and do emergency broadcasts for us.
They've been getting updates. Very good, thank you.
Okay, and they have been getting updates in the morning. Okay. Excuse me, that includes an AM station as well. So some people get AM, some people get FM. We tend to use radio more often because if you do have an evacuation situation, you're not going to be able to just be at home and watch your TV. Okay.
A little closing in perspective from the fire department standpoint. I'm Randy Redmond, the fire chief in Sierra Vista, and I'm speaking for myself and Bill Miller, the chief for the district. He's not here tonight. This is not a parallel circumstance to 2011. The working relationship that's going on with this Type 1 team is incredible. The resources are being pooled and used correctly, and we're very, very excited about what's going on. And the comfort level of our community is a lot different, and we really do appreciate it for what you're doing. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Clay?
Yep. Thank you all for coming, and I'll be here for a few minutes if you'd like to go and ask a specific question. Thank you.